I think we're still missing Sam. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't see Sam.
I think I see all the other board members, and thank you to District Strack, who's here as well. Thanks for joining us. I wonder if you can all see where I am. That kind of fun. You missed this spot. See, I wish I don't have the agenda in front of me.
We're
Hi,
live.
Sam.
Hello.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you to everybody for joining us. We've got all of our board members joining us tonight. Welcome to Michelle Tuitupo, representing Precinct 1, to Mike Nemelka, who's representing Precinct 2, to Catherine Kennedy, representing Precinct 3, to Board Vice President Nate Salazar, representing Precinct 4, to Sam Hansen, representing Precinct 5. I'm the board president, Melissa Ford, representing Precinct 6, and to Christy Sweat for representing Precinct 7. Thanks to you all for being here, to our superintendent, Larry Madden, and to Alan Kersley, our business administrator. And then we have several other people who are joining us as district employees who've been working, I know, at a full sprint to be prepared for what we're trying to address tonight. So welcome and thank you all for being here. I've asked our student board member, Dottie Uman, who I didn't welcome because I'm welcoming her now, and she is going to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. So if you'll please stand and join me with the pledge, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, I'll begin now. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America
and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much, Dottie. I really appreciate that. And I'm still getting used to hearing it in sort of the unison way of a Zoom meeting or a WebEx meeting, but thank you for doing that. I really do appreciate that.
Thank you.
I want to take a moment to address a few things that happened at our last board meeting. As board president, I want to make sure our community members know that our number one focus as a board is the students of the Salt Lake City School District. Last week, other priorities and personal concerns took away from that focus, and our board did not represent itself the way we should. These types of distractions have no place in a public board meeting. Our community has entrusted us as their elected school board members to act with professionalism, to lead the district, to work on behalf of their children, to use this board meeting time wisely, and to be committed to do what it takes to get the job done. Tonight, that's where our focus will be. I know each of our board members shares my commitment to our students and to our employees. We value the trust and confidence you placed in each of us when you elect us. Each board member is passionate about public education, and more specifically about your students' education. I hope you will sense that commitment tonight as you participate in this live stream. I want to thank each member of the board for the ideas you bring to the table, for the preparation with which you arrive at each meeting, and for our shared commitment to looking out for the best interest of the students of the Salt Lake City School District. I know that we're stronger together. and I appreciate all that you do. I would like now to turn the time to our superintendent, Larry Madden, for a presentation on our school reopening plan.
Thanks, President Ford. I think the first thing I'd like to do is introduce who I have here from district leadership. And I'll just go down the list. I can't, because I'm not quite sure I can see everybody, but Chris Jesslin is in school leadership and support. He's over the West Network. Christina Kindle is the executive director of policy and legal services. Moselle Orton is the executive director of human resources. Becky Pittum is in school leadership and support, and she is a network director. And Tiffany Hall is the executive director of teaching and learning. And Yandri Chatwin's the executive director of communications. And I think I got everybody, but like I say, since I can't see everyone, I'm not 100% sure. So I guess I'd like to start. I'm going to share my screen, and we'll move to a presentation on the reopening plan. But before I do that, I would like to say that we've had a lot of feedback, and I know that board members have had a lot of feedback. And I do want to acknowledge that we've heard what you're saying. We're trying to make the best decisions we can based on that feedback and based on the incredible wealth of information that's available. And I do think the one thing that we do all agree on, and that I hear across the board, is that we all care about this community of Salt Lake City School District. So with that preface, I will share my screen. And let's see. Well, give me just 1 second. Back in. Hopefully everyone can see that. Okay, so on our first slide, I want to speak a little bit about our goals. Our goal is to provide quality learning while maintaining the safety of our community and take steps that will allow us to open and remain open as soon as it's safe. We all want this. We desperately want to open. I know that teachers feel that way. I know the administration feels that way. I know parents feel that way. And so we want to move there as quickly and as safely as we can. I'm going to start with a little bit of data that we've been looking at. So this first slide is test positivity rates, and this is for Salt Lake County. And this is actually updated. So what we have here is a 10.59% positive rate in the tests given. Countries, the countries that have been most successful in containing COVID have had rates of 3 or less. Our number is actually not 10.59. Since I presentation together, this number is already down to 9.32 for the last 7-day average. And that compares back to that first week of July, when the 7-day average was 13.1. So it's trending in a positive direction. And actually 9.32 is the number that we're at right now. The next slide I want to show is the daily new cases in Salt Lake County. And so if we look back to April, if the rate drops below 10 confirmed cases per day, it's estimated that somewhere in the range of 2 to 20% of Salt Lake County's population would be infected in the next year. And if we look over at where we are, this is not quite accurate either, and I'll update that for you as well. But over the last week, Salt Lake County's averaged 19.3. It's actually not that high. We're actually down to 17.9, and you can see that it's making good progress down from a high back on July 13th when it was 26. So it's making a pretty sharp decline. But at this number here in confirmed cases per day for every 100,000 residents, that's this context. It's if those rates were to continue, somewhere in the range of 20 to 50% of Salt Lake County's population would be infected in the next year. So this is our proposal. Our proposal is that has students start on September 8th. in that time before when we would have started. Teachers would have started on August 18th. We would do professional learning planning for teachers. And then in that August 25th to September 4th timeframe, we would work on assessments, taking our reading assessments, some math assessments. Teachers can be meeting with small groups, meeting students, meeting parents, make sure that all of our technology is in place. I'm going to talk about the technology a little more in just a minute, but making sure that all of our students are ready to go. Students would begin with remote learning on that date of September 8th. And then we're looking at, again, we want to get back in the classroom. We want to get back in person. That change in learning environment would occur at a midterm or an end of a quarter. So we tried to target that at a time when it would be a grading period. So those would be a more natural kind of transition. So the main criteria that we're looking at for transitioning back, and this would be the first step, would be a positive test percentage below 5% in Salt Lake County. And that would be based on a rolling average of the past 7 days and then maintained for 7 consecutive days. And the other piece that we're looking at, and again, that is at 9.3 right now and moving in the right direction. The second piece would be the daily new cases in Salt Lake County per 100,000 population. To be less than 10 cases. And again, that one is 17.9 and moving in the right direction. So remote learning will look different this fall than what you have seen. Every teacher will have their classes set up in Canvas. All the available resources for those classes will be linked in Canvas. So it'll be more of a one-stop shopping approach. We had things kind of all over the place last spring as we were trying to determine what the best resources were. We learned a lot, learned some really great things, but we do know that we need to have some consistency and make it easier for our families. And so we will also include some training on accessing Canvas for families. There will be scheduled time with teachers. It won't be all asynchronous where it's all things are posted and it's all the responsibility of students without a teacher to take care of the learning. There will be live online sessions with teachers. District resources and scheduled online support. There'll be help sessions, office hours. I'm going to show you an example of this in just a minute that I think will help to help see some of the planning that's gone into this. Student well-being, this is really one of our big concerns. It has been in our district. This is something we've taken on even before COVID, and we know how important it is to help students feel good. It helps their academic learning. That's very clear. Counselors and social workers in every building to assist students with the social emotional learning lessons, relationship building, the other things that you can see listed. Whatever mental health supports we need to provide for students, a blended model of support. There'll be some in-person and virtual deployment of mental health services. And then we've also had a lot of teachers that started in on this last year, but other things that are just opportunities for students to get together and be kids. And so lunch groups, socials, games. I know that a lot of counselors set up these kinds of activities. And so we definitely want to see more of that. So I'm going to show you a short video. It's about 6 minutes long. One of our board member Sweat, participated in this. And I think it'll help give a better idea of what it will actually all look like. So I'm going to go ahead and play this.
The goal of this video is to provide information to our community about potential in-person, hybrid, and online schedules at the middle school level. Additional committees at the high school and elementary school levels will need to meet to create similar examples for those schedules. At Bryant, our school uses a teaming model. In a teaming model, all 120 students within a team have the same science, math, language arts, and social studies teachers. Bryant is split into 2 7th grade teams and 2 8th grade teams. Those teachers can work together to help students create study groups or make projects. Students in a team are broken into classes of 30. This student is in Class 1, Pod A. A pod is half of her class. about 15 students. These students, like orcas, swim together. They're in the same hybrid and online classes. Creating groups like these will help schools build small communities. If necessary, it also helps with contact tracing. This schedule is in a traditional school year. You'll notice this student has a homeroom in her schedule. This is an example if the school decided to have a homeroom class. If they choose to have a virtual homeroom class or opted not to have a homeroom, this box would be another elective or something else decided by that school. As we switch to a hybrid, half of the students would attend on Monday and Thursday, and half of the students would come on Tuesday and Friday. This list explains what could happen on a digital day. Some of those assignments on a digital day might be outside, building something, another offline activity, or perhaps doing something on Canvas. They could be meeting with teachers or other educational professionals during this digital day time. Let's look at what a student's schedule might look like on those digital days. In a hybrid model, students aren't seeing their teacher in person every day. Families might want to know what other supports are available for their students. They want families to know when they can access people at school, when they can access things like office hours, help sessions, lunches with the counselors, social time, or battle of the books with the librarian. When in-person class is over, they aren't left alone with their Canvas page. There will be scheduled times to get help and interaction outside of class. This is what it would look like if we were all online. This schedule supports 5 days of instruction. It's similar to the hybrid, but the classes have been split up. In this schedule, the students would attend their first through third period classes in a virtual room on Monday. We'll call these virtual classes synchronous time. These lessons would be interactive. Students would be presenting their ideas, discussing, and collaborating. There would be a 15-minute break between these 45-minute synchronous classes. Teachers might want to spend the last 10 minutes of class checking in with particular students in that group. Later that day, there are the same types of activities that would happen at home. On Tuesday, they would attend their afternoon classes in the afternoon, with additional activities happening in the morning. This is an example of what a student's schedule could look like in an online learning scenario. Like the example schedule before, this information would be provided to families and students before school starts. Students don't have to attend additional activities that are planned, but they would be available for them. In this example, there is a homeroom check-in on days they aren't scheduled to meet with their homeroom teacher. At the middle school level, students could use this time to create a learning plan for the next day with their homeroom teacher. Teachers could help students answer questions like, what is due on Thursday? And what do you need to do before class on Tuesday? The homeroom teacher could also be the contact person for families and students. If a student is not attending their synchronous online classes, it would be that homeroom teacher that would reach out to their family to make sure that everything is okay. This is an example of a schedule of opportunities. This could also be printed for easy access and stuck on your fridge. It would be posted on Canvas with clickable links to Zoom rooms. If a student wants to attend the math help session, they would click on that box and the link would open. A team at school would work together to create this schedule of opportunities. Teachers are working hard to understand Canvas, and they have great tools they plan to use in the coming school year. There are more options for supports. In middle school, it's necessary to teach students how to solve problems and advocate for themselves. This guide is a what to do when you don't know what to do guide. Teachers could explicitly teach this guide, and families could use the same resources for teaching their student to advocate for their education. If a student says to their family, my grade is lower than I'm happy with, that family member could use this guide to help their student know what to do in that scenario. Teachers would teach their A group in the morning on Monday, B group in the afternoon on Monday, and vice versa on the following day. Teachers also have prep time during the day. They might have office hours, help sessions, and homeroom check-in times in their weekly schedules. On Wednesday, this is the time for professional development, team meetings, additional study and small group sessions, or office hours. Every weekday is a work day for teachers and students. In a hybrid model, teachers would have the same responsibilities as they did in an online learning plan. The beauty of this group of schedules is continuity and being able to move between the learning scenarios seamlessly.
I'd love to hear from our parents first. It gives me a better picture. It helps me to understand how school will be in the fall for my kids.
The work you guys have done is impressive. I gotta say, it's divided up into grades, so there's no alphabetical A through F. Is that correct?
Yes, we work really hard to build our teams to be as diverse as possible. We also want it to be as educationally sound when it comes to how kids work together.
I'm really impressed with the plan, and I know that it's very similar to what Glendale has already planned. Some of the things that I really liked was the homeroom and advisory. It gives kids a chance to have some adult in the building that they really have their attention and they can connect with.
Okay, let me get back to the screen. So I think it helps get a picture of that. The particular example that we looked at there was, of course, middle school. So that that kind of helps you get a picture of how that can work. It would be, I'm certainly a little bit different in elementary school and a little bit different in high school. But I think it provides some clarity on how you could actually flow from one learning model to another. So how you could flow from being all online to being in a hybrid model, to being in a fully with everyone at school model, and it could do it seamlessly without having to cause a whole rebuild every time we made a move.
Superintendent,
Yeah.
That video and the extended version of that video will be available for people to watch on our
Yes.
website, correct?
It will.
Thank you. So people can go ahead and look for that. And then, like you said, you'll be looking toward providing similar graphics and explanation for other opportunities at the elementary school and high school, correct?
Yes, that is true.
Thank you.
I'm going to get back to my share now. I had to make a change on that screen. Okay, so this is the next slide in the sharing. So, one of the things that we understand also is that we have some students that may need some additional support. And so we approach this with flexibility and scheduling based on the needs of individual students. And we will look at students' IEPs, look at 504s, and we can be very flexible and adaptable to meet those individual needs. This slide speaks to the technology. So right now we have almost 13,000 laptops ready for distribution, 2,000 laptops on order that we expect to get in early October. And we're actually preparing a requisition now for 4,000 more laptops that we would get in mid to probably late October. We've got 1,000 iPads, 200 hotspots, and the 400 hotspots on order arrived. So we've got 600 hotspots in hand now. So what we realize is we got to do everything we can to make sure that every student in our district has the technology and the access that they need to work effectively online. Foundation's also working with Comcast to provide an additional connectivity. We've got 10 mobile hotspots that we deployed last spring that we can place on buses or buildings. 8 schools where that are Wi-Fi accessible in the parking lots, and 5 additional schools with expanded exterior Wi-Fi. And then beyond that, that's not on the slide, is we've installed Wi-Fi in the stadiums at East High and Highland High, and we're working on West High. So in those parking lots, or even within the stadiums themselves, there would be Wi-Fi access. Professional development, getting teachers ready for the fall. We've had over 900 teachers participate in the basic Canvas training, that is the tool that they'll be using for the online components. And we've had over 400 participate in either the intermediate or advanced trainings. We've got teams of schools that are attending a Kagan training that's starting. And that's specifically about engaging students and promoting participation and collaboration among students. And so we've done some training in the past on Kagan. and it's focused on how to do that effectively in an online environment this year, which I think will be very helpful. PLCs at sites through the summer, and what that PLC stands for is professional learning communities. And there's been many groups of teachers meeting throughout the summer on their own time, just driven by the desire to make the best possible experience for students in the fall. This is kind of a cram jam slide, but we've got a lot of professional development planned for over the next month, learning opportunities for students, or excuse me, learning opportunities for teachers, and they're clamoring for it. So ready to return. At the point that we're ready to return, we are ready to return. We've got masks, we've got plexiglass barriers already installed at the schools. Face shields are available for employees. Every classroom will have disinfectant, hand sanitizer. We make our own hand sanitizer. We're not going to run out of hand sanitizer. And we've purchased some individual student desk plexiglass barriers that we can deploy in the classrooms as well. The HVAC system's adjusted to turn over the air, all of the air daily. We're going to provide each student with a water bottle, and you can see a picture of one of the touchless water fountains. Most schools have those installed now. The ones that don't will have those installed by fall. And we're also working on social distancing within the classrooms and how to make sure we can manage that well. We're going to continue with our support of families. This hasn't stopped. Breakfast and lunch options will be available. I mean, for any student that qualifies for free or reduced lunch, they will still get meals no matter what learning mode we were in. And we'll continue with the hotline, emergency food resources for families, medical care, and the other things that you see on there. The bottom line is we want to get back to school. And we call on everyone to help us get there. I mentioned the Utah Moonshot 55 before, and I'll mention it again. And we're seeing positive results from this. So people wearing masks, we're starting to see things move in the right direction. Social distance, isolate as needed. The reopening plan itself is a document that's going to be posted online after this meeting, and we'll have an FAQ that'll be linked. And I don't know if that'll go up tonight, but if that doesn't go up tonight, it'll go up early next week. That concludes the presentation. I will turn it back over to you, President Ford.
Thank you, Superintendent. I appreciate that. I can see that you've brought a lot of highly trained, highly professional people with you who've worked really hard on this plan. Do you want to give them an opportunity to speak to the presentation or to the restart plan that was posted with the agenda?
Well, sure.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
I might have to call on people.
I know lots of people have been working on lots of different facets of this plan, and I certainly hate to put people on the spot, but I do want to give them an opportunity to talk about the roles that they've played in putting this together.
Well, let me just maybe we'll just kind of point around to the executive directors that we have here first. So, Tiffany, would you like to speak to the plan?
Sure. We have done a lot of work. It's been a really amazing summer. And I think one of the things that we have realized is that as we look at this, you know, this isn't just a quick change in the way we do business. This is a fundamental shift in the way we think about education. And we have a cadre of amazing, professional, educated educators who are really good at what they do. And it's not just quite as easy though, as we've all learned, as we've made mistakes with tools and learned how to do things better. It's not just kind of doing the same thing with a different tool. It's really thinking about and processing how we're coming to standards, how we're looking at assessments, how we're dealing with student engagement in a different way. So I just like to say a couple words about student engagement, and then Dr. Bundia might be a nice pass off to talk about social emotional learning from that. But we really have heard from parents that that student engagement was very important and something that they missed last spring. So a couple of things that we have done, as the superintendent said, we've put we will have by next Tuesday teams from the district of 300 people who have gone through a Zoom training. It was all on Zoom and conducted in Zoom to help develop team building, engaged learning, and decision-making strategies. And that training and modeling will go out to all of our schools as well. Schools were asked to create a team to share that information, since we couldn't do that with every teacher who was there. We have acquired, I'd like to thank Mr. Sam Quantz for the work he did with Zoom to bring that up to standard for our privacy and security requirements, so that we can have that as a tool that will allow us to do collaboration, teacher to student, student to student, teacher to an individual student, so that we are able to really think about class time as a more interactive piece than we have maybe before when it's online. I'm also excited. I wasn't a part of the schedule development, but I'm excited about the schedule development that was conducted through School Leadership and Performance, because one of the things that having a Wednesday digital day will do is really let us watch the matrix of people who are participating. So if they're attending class, if they're doing assignments, that Wednesday gives us an opportunity to call and really communicate with parents, to do small groups with students who maybe need some additional help or support, and really connect in all of those ways. So I think those are going to be great. And then we've also invested in some terrific new resources for literacy, for math, and for science that will, and for social studies, that will help us be able to engage students in some different ways and give teachers more opportunities to move away from the textbook and use some online resources. And I would also just like to thank all of the teachers, especially our library technology teachers, our fine arts teachers, our music teachers, all of these classes that we would think would be so difficult to think about, well, how would I do that electronically? All of our teachers are coming to the table to say, how can we make this a more engaging, rigorous, exciting experience for students? So thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Hall is the Executive Director of Teaching and Learning, just so everyone knows. There's one other person here that I didn't notice before, and I don't think she actually can have her camera on right now. I think she's out someplace, but Dr. Sandra Buendia, she's the Executive Director of Equity and Student Support. Sandra, did you want to share?
Sure. I need a test to make sure you can hear me first.
We can.
Okay, because I'm having technical difficulty. My camera's not working for some reason, so I apologize. So under Educational Equity and Student Support, we have the Social and Emotional Multi-Tiered Systems of Support Department. We have the Access Department. We have the Student Services Department, which is also over counseling and social workers. And who am I missing? Oh, special education. How do I forget special education? It's huge. So what we have been working really hard to innovate and have planned deliberately how we are going to serve students in either learning environment, whether it's remote, whether it's hybrid, or whether it's 100% in the classroom. What we've been trying to do, and Shelley Halverson, who is the director over special ed, has been delivering special education services to small groups of students and those whom we're allowed to bring in, because there are a lot of restrictions. So we're limited in terms of who we can bring in and serve, and make sure we're maintaining levels of integrity in terms of safety precautions. Social and emotional learning, Dr. Hall alluded to our collaboration in continuing to move that work forward with our second signature practice, which is engaging strategies. And it's really applying the 5 competencies, self-regulation, self-awareness, relationship skills, decision-making, along with what the Kagan structures do, which is create environments in which students together, and it's a positive interdependence, but also individual accountability. So there's a lot of exciting things happening. We're glad that we have 300 people participating this week and next week. We're continuing our social and emotional lessons. Counselors are providing individual therapy, if you will, if once they have parent permission. Social workers are also connecting with students. We're respecting the privacy of students, so we're not doing a lot of group work at this time, but if we're able to bring students in small groups, then we can absolutely provide group support and lessons. I'm trying to think what else. Equity's continuing their work in terms of, investigating and interrogating rather implicit bias and all that fun stuff to see what we can do to dismantle structures that prevent students from being successful and making sure that we are eliminating anything that may be reinforcing the marginalization of disenfranchised and underserved communities for sure. I'm trying to think. It's a lot, and I know we have a lot of people, and I'm happy to answer questions, but that's a quick overview. We have a lot of great plans.
Thanks, Dr. Buendia. We have 3 network directors here. I'm wondering if anybody from the school leadership, Roberto Munoz, who's the executive director of school leadership, couldn't be here tonight, but if any of the network directors would like to add to the conversation. Becky? Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Larry. I would just like to say that this is a plan that I believe in. It's a plan that is a truly collaborative effort. We've spent weeks and weeks working with stakeholders within the district. We met with, at the elementary level, for example, met with every single principal multiple times. Those principals took the information back to teachers. And then we also had stakeholder groups where parents and teachers and administrators and secretaries and custodians, everyone was involved. So we really have had a chance to listen to our stakeholders. And then again, I know Larry mentioned this, but we've had a lot of input through email and through phone messages, and we've listened to that and we've taken that all into consideration. So it's been an ongoing effort where we have truly collaborated at a district level. Lots and lots of meetings, with the bottom line being we want to do what's right for students and for teachers and for families. And I believe we have come after a journey. We have come to the end with a plan that is comprehensive. It's sound educationally. I believe that it's courageous, and I'm proud of the work that we've done. So, thanks, Larry.
Thanks, Becky. Anyone else? Moselle, would you like to? Moselle's the executive director of Human Resources. Okay, Chris. Maybe I'll go to Chris first and then come to you, Moselle. Is that okay?
Thank you, Moselle. You're so gracious. I think ultimately what is critical for us to remember is that we're teaching not math and reading and writing and science. We're teaching kids. And I think that the time and energy spent developing this plan takes care of just those people. If we're not taking care of the kids and in turn not taking care of the adults that we're all associated with, then we're losing that resource. And that's not something that can be part of our work. So I appreciate the work that everyone's given to this plan and hope that we can move forward tonight and get after work. Thank you all.
Thanks, Chris. Moselle?
I just wanted to say how much we appreciate this opportunity that the pandemic has given us to all work very, very hard together and work on new work and work on productive work. The plan was a collaborative effort across all of us. We all not only had our pieces to play, but helped contribute and review each other's work. We also undergirded this plan with a considerable amount of research, training, discussions with our local health department, our state health department, lots of information from the Utah School Board of Education, consideration of safety for our students, the science behind what is safety, and also the extreme concern and consideration we have for safety for our employees and other adults in our community. So I just wanted to let you all know that I firmly believe that we have come up with a plan that will help us move into starting school in person safely as time goes by, and we can watch all the new data as it comes in, and all of us are very vested in making sure that this is undergirded in absolutely the most reasonable and best practices that we could find.
Thanks, Moselle. Does anybody else want to chime in? Okay, I would just like one moment to just publicly thank all of these people and all the people that they work with for the effort that they've put in. It's incredible, and I feel incredibly lucky to work with such passionate and dedicated people.
Thank you, Superintendent. I will add to that. Thank you, a huge thank you from the board. And as board leadership, I think Nate and I can speak for all of us that we really are immensely grateful for the amount of work that you've put in under pretty trying circumstances. None of this has been easy. I do recognize that, and I'm grateful to it. And thank you for being willing to be here and speak to it. What I'd like to do now is give each board member an opportunity to share their thoughts and take a minute to reflect what they're hearing from their communities, to share their thoughts on this plan, to ask questions of the experts that are here and of our superintendent. And let's try and take about 5 minutes each if you can. I obviously will give you the time that you need, but I don't want this to go necessarily too long. So thank you all, board members, for your engagement in this. I know you've received a lot of feedback and have important ideas to share. I'd like to start with Precinct 1, and our board member representing Precinct 1 is Michelle Tuitupo. Michelle?
Thanks, Melissa. I have a couple of questions, but before that, I have a brief statement that I'd like to read, if I may. So when I was appointed to this board in May, my main goal was to be a voice for my community. And there are many who feel their voices are not heard and therefore choose to stay silent until now. I've received an outpouring of emails and messages from students, parents, and teachers asking for various results regarding plans to reopen schools in the fall. The highlight to all of the messages was one of choice. They were simply asking for choices that would best suit the educational needs of their children. My message to community members who feel unheard is to keep speaking out. So even when the outcome is not what you would have hoped for, we move forward together, and when the need arises again to have your voices count, speak up and speak out. And we should all be doing this with civility as one of our main goals as well. There's a Samoan proverb that I use in my email signature at work, So'olefau malefau, which means in working together, we can accomplish great things. So whatever the outcome today, let us work together as a community to support our students, our teachers, and our staff. And if we choose to begin the school year with an all-remote start, I also implore the district to find ways to get students back into the classrooms as quickly and as safely as possible. I would also like to thank Superintendent Madden for his leadership, the planning committees for their hard work, because we know that it was not an easy task, and the community for engaging in these very difficult conversations. So my first question to, I guess, anyone, any of the directors, is one of the statements on the website, on the district website, after discussing the in-person or for students who have special education needs and English language learners to have some in-person contact. there's another statement on there that says we will continue to provide in-person small group instruction to those who are most vulnerable. What is the definition of that and the parameters that we're going to be using? Is it going to be case by case per school decision? And then does that need to be initiated by a parent?
So did you, sorry to interrupt, but let me ask, Melissa, are we going to be allowed to respond or shall we wait?
I think we should be able to respond.
Okay. So when we, and when I, even though it was collaborative, Christina Kendall, myself really worked diligently on drafting that plan that you received. And so when, it's Sandra Buendia, sorry. I know my camera's not working. I'm sorry. So when we are talking about vulnerable communities, it's those communities who we are underserving and who are traditionally marginalized. And so we are talking about our students who are English learners, resettled refugees, students with disabilities, and anyone else that schools and guardians really believe that we need to provide additional support in whatever capacity we are able to. We have, with what we've learned with special education, is it's been really challenging to meet all of our students with disabilities needs because of the restrictions with social distancing. And so our understanding is that we are going to really work hard to continue bringing those groups in that need more time. Again, English learners learning English along with literacy, and our students with disability who need to have their specialized instruction provided to them. So that's how we envisioned it in our conversation with cabinet members and other leaders in the district. And I will invite Christina Kendall to clarify or add if I've misunderstood or we need to elaborate further on that response.
Thank you, Sandra Buendia. I appreciate your taking that question, and I really liked hearing you say to parents and guardians to advocate for their children if they see that need, to be a partner and advocate for that one-on-one instruction or small group instruction if they need it. So thank you for taking the time to do that. Michelle, did you have other questions you'd like to ask?
Yes, please. Just one more question.
Go ahead. Yep, go ahead.
So how will the district reach out to parents regarding Canvas training and accommodate working parents and their schedules?
I'll take that one, Superintendent, if that's okay. So this is Tiffany Hall, and we are working to create with Canvas and some very talented people in our department, and also in Dr. Buendia's department to help us with interpretation and translation, both an opportunity for live and videoed Canvas trainings for parents, and also in PowerSchool. PowerSchool is kind of like the one ring that rules them all. Everything happens in PowerSchool. And then Canvas has a app that parents can use on their phone. It has calendars that can be shared, and then we have an observer status where parents can go in and see what assignments are missing or what things are due and different things. So we are making step-by-step click videos, and then we are going to have those in all of our major languages so that parents can listen to them, stop, go back and forth with them. We'll also have written instructions for all of that. So we hope that will help with people's schedules, and also just sometimes you look at it and then 3 weeks later you need to look at it again so you remember how to do that. So we're working to have those posted it's almost August now, so probably mid-August to have those up. And then also in the first 9 days, which we really haven't addressed, but one of the things that will be happening in that 9 days is opportunities for parents and teachers to meet. And we're working on figuring out how, when parents come in, if their students are doing some early assessments or some initial assessments to assess their learning and see where we're starting, or to collect some data, that maybe that would be a great time if parents would like to have an opportunity to go through that in a safe and socially distanced way with a live person. So we're also working on that as an option. Thank you for the question.
This is Yandere Chatwin with Communications. I've got something more to add. What Dr. Hall just said was spot on. And there's one more thing we're working with for the in-person trainings. Again, we know that a lot of our parents might prefer an in-person opportunity. They might prefer to be trained by someone who speaks their language, if we can accommodate that in the schools. And so along with our chief information officer, we've been discussing a train the trainer model, where we would hold a training to train our paraprofessionals at our schools. These are the individuals who very frequently interface with our families. They're their direct line of contact to the school. And this model would allow paraprofessionals to learn how to train families when they come in. This increases the capacity so that one teacher isn't necessarily trying to train all 30 fifth grade parents in a classroom. And we'll make sure that our parents are able to get that in-person support that they need, if that's the method they prefer.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Michelle, do you have any other questions?
No, thank you all so much.
Okay, thank you. Now, representing Precinct 2 is Mike Nemelka. Mike, do you have something you'd like to add?
Of course. Can you hear me? I appreciate everything that this district officials have done preparing this. Doesn't mean I have to accept it, I'm probably the only one that's not going to agree with them. But, after 20 years of teaching, it's hard for me to understand. Oh, the reason you can't see my picture is because somebody mentioned last time that I was playing solitaire while the board meeting was going on. Well, it was either that or text, and the rest of the board members know how to text, and I don't know how to text. So I was just playing solitaire while I was listening. So that's answer why you don't have my picture now. I never hide anything. Anyway, it's hard for me to understand after 20 years how you're going to provide social and emotional health through a computer. It's just amazing what I think you've come up with. Let me just read a statement I've got. It's a little bit maybe, I understand when I need to read this anyway, because I'm probably going to be the only one to vote against this particular program. I believe that motherhood is the greatest occupation in the world, and fatherhood is right behind it. That being said, 73% of the social and mental health of children is found taught in schools. So a Johns Hopkins University study indicated. So if we are entertaining that study to have some worth, it means that public schools, private schools, religious schools, and other schools are responsible for some of the social and mental health of our children. However, I also believe that religious institutions have played a great part in the social and mental health of our children. With the advent of this virus, the religious institutions have limited their contact with their children, and the social and mental health of children has fallen on the heads of their parents. And I believe that's where it should be. Every day, hundreds of police and fire personnel don their uniforms and go to work. Utility workers, post office workers, grocery store workers, those who process the many items we purchase in the stores, even gas station workers, convenience store workers. Think of all the many milk products that we purchase each and every day, and you got to have somebody milk the cows. And other workers by the thousands take necessary precautions and report to their post to do their jobs. We should thank them for their willingness to serve us in spite of the danger and no matter their personal fears. They too, in some instances, have children and worry about them. Yet again, they do their job. They have courage, and we applaud them for it. So why do some teachers do not want to take their place in front of their classrooms? As a fellow teacher, I feel sad that teachers who work in the occupation I love so dearly have refused to interact with children inside the classroom because of their personal fears. I received over 500 emails, some good, some bad. Some have been downright filthy. To those of you who sent the filthy emails, I say shame on you. To you teachers who sent emails supporting face-to-face learning, thank you. To those teachers who are afraid of the life you live, you really need to take a look at yourself and decide if you really have the desire to teach. Of course, those teachers who have health problems have a reasonable fear and should not be held to the same level of expectation. After 3.5 years on the school board, I have fought for the benefit of the teachers and to increase the learning capabilities of each and every student in this school district. I feel that I've wasted my time, and I've been fighting for those who have no desire to help the children in this district. Some of you have stepped up to the line on exceptional teachers. There is that portion of the teaching staff that just refuse to do what is expected. Becoming great teachers of exceptional children who expect their teachers to guide them along the road of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and of course, the American dream. So here we are now refusing to provide our children with the most important aspect of their potential and needed childhood growth by requiring them to be academically taught by remote learning. So you'll say we have taken another look at this after the first quarter. What happens if we still have the coronavirus with us after the first quarter? On top of that, the flu. I'm sure you'll be with just like the flu and other viruses have been with us year after year. Our young member of the school board from West stated, if I remember right, we didn't close the schools and go to remote learning when a lot of our students were out with the flu and 500 of our teachers did not show up for work. What about large corporations such as Walmart, Target, Home Depot, and Amazon, to name a few? They're open and doing business. Why are we afraid to close down? Why are we afraid to close them down? Are they more important than schools? We are not looking after those who rely on us for guidance into adulthood. Most of you do not remember when the government closed most of the mental hospitals and what happened to the patients in those hospitals. I do, and I still see the effect of that decision today on the streets of America. How do we protect those who are the most at risk? More of our children will die from drug abuse, abuse and other childhood diseases than they will from the coronavirus. In fact, not one teacher throughout the world has died from the coronavirus transmitted from a child. Check the science. I have not changed my thinking in the least. I still believe that online teaching is a lazy way for teaching children K through 12 and is the least effective. The loss of the vocational education and remaining online limited classes, another valid concern of students planning on not going to college and instead intending to seek an employer-sponsored program. Our Spanish, Polynesian, and other minorities in this area are experiencing the greatest effects are experiencing the greatest effects of the coronavirus. Why? Because in spite of the virus, they have still taken care of their extended family responsibilities. So let's go ahead and provide another group of third grade students to move on to an upper grade, not being able to read on grade level. That can't be much different than we've been doing for the last 13 years. Let's decide the children in this district are more important than the teachers, administrators, and others who have contact with them and deny them the right to learn the American way. With loving and kind teachers whose greatest desire is to see those who have been put in their charge excel, learn to think, learn to love their country, their state, and the adults that care for them. So let's all of us just shut down everything we can, just starve, have no protection and services, adhere to the fear and stupidity, and just vegetate in place for the next year. Stupid is as stupid does. I know now what that phrase means. Here is my support for the opening of schools. Face-to-face teaching for those parents who wish to have their children in school. Those teachers who wish to teach face-to-face will have that option. All teachers in the classroom, even if they only want to teach online. Online teaching available to those parents who want it. Teachers who want to only teach online will have that option. Homeschooling available if parents request it. So let's do our job, board members, and teach the children of this district the way they deserve and expect. That's all I have to say, and I don't have any questions.
Mike, I appreciate you expressing your opinion. I don't share it. I've seen a lot of work and a lot of not laziness represented here. I do think, as the superintendent has said, that getting our children back in classrooms as quickly and as safely as possible is very important. And I certainly respect your right, Mike, to share your opinion and reflection on what you think. That's how this board works. And I do appreciate all the voices brought to the table. So thank you for that. And if you want to share that, I can take a copy of it. So thank you. I'd like to move now to our board member who's representing Precinct 3 for her opportunity to speak, Dr. Catherine Kennedy.
Thanks, Melissa. I have enjoyed the opportunity to hear from a lot of constituents across the district. Whether they agree with me or I agree with them or not, it has been a privilege to hear from so many people and to read your opinions and to hear from you and to listen to what you say and your passion and your advocacy for your students. And I've really appreciated the emails. I've answered many of them. I've not answered all of them, and I will continue to look at them and answer some of them as I can over the next few weeks. I would like to go back to some things that we talked about at our meeting on the 7th. It was a long meeting, and reflect on some of those things that were said. We talked at length about this plan and the hybrid plans that were created at that time. I wanted to follow up with some questions that my constituents had, and I do have something brief that I'll read at the same time. One of the things that's been said to me by some of the constituents is that they do not want me to be fear-based when I make my decisions. And I wanted to speak to that specifically because I talked a little bit about that on the 7th. And so I guess I'll start out with that. Many of you have asked me not to be fear-based, and I did write this to some of the constituents yesterday. I say loudly and clearly now that I think it's okay to be afraid of this virus. And so for parents and teachers that are afraid of this virus, I think that's okay. This virus is scary. Parents, students, and teachers are worried about this virus, and they've written to me about their concerns about what might happen to them if they catch it. Usually, however, they're not worried about themselves. They're much more worried about what might happen if they catch this virus and then pass it to someone they love. I've heard stories about fear, but I've also heard these stories more in the context of love. People have written to me about their fear of losing people they love, whether it is their 10-week-old new pregnancy or their 99-year-old parent. And I have heard about both of those things specifically. And people that are writing to me, you may be saying fear-based, but what I am hearing from people that are writing to me, I am hearing love-based. My own constituents in the Avenues, Capitol Hill, and Federal Heights have asked me to vote for Superintendent Madden's plan at a rate of 29-4. And those 4, 2 have asked me to vote for hybrid. Actually, 1 has asked for me to vote for hybrid, and then 1 I've read in the newspaper wants hybrid. And then 2 have asked for full-time. Teachers have asked me to vote for Superintendent Madden's plan at a rate of 67 to, I think it's 4 right now. This does not include, these numbers do not include SLEA's advocacy for Superintendent Madden's plan or SLOSS's advocacy for Superintendent Madden's plan, or the West Teacher and Administrator Network's advocacy, which was very important to me, and I really appreciated the people that put that together, so thank you to those people who put that together for Superintendent Madden's plan. Where 94% of teachers and 100% of the administrators who responded to that survey, for a total of 291 administrators and teachers in our district, wanted Superintendent Madden's plan. And that was really important. I also believe that Superintendent Madden's plan is the best choice, and I think we'll realize that quickly. So I have a couple questions, but I appreciate that input, and I appreciate all the information I got. So I'm going to reflect questions mostly from the schools that have spoken to me, school communities. I got some questions from the Ensign PTA, and I want to ask a few of those questions, and also some questions from the Wasatch SCC, and a few questions from the Washington community as well. So the Ensign PTA is interested in why we are not doing in our middle schools and elementary schools, why we are not doing our 2 days back to back. They seem to think that that would be better if we did the AA and the BB sort of Tuesday and Wednesday, and then as a group, and then Thursday and Friday. That's one of their first questions.
Is that a Chris Jesselyn question?
I think it may be a Becky Pittum question, probably.
Oh, for Ensign. Yes. Thanks, Becky.
Sorry, Becky. Catching you off guard.
No, you're just fine. I have to just turn this on. Thank you for asking that question. That was one of the questions that we talked about at length in our stakeholder meetings with principals and then also with parents and teachers. The reason that we decided on the AB break, AB schedule is because we felt that if we did AA and then a break and BB, there'd be too much time for kids to be on their own, to be completely independent without that teacher, without as much teacher and particularly face-to-face input. And so it was deliberate. It's a very deliberate choice so that teachers have that opportunity to work with kids face-to-face, then give them work, right? To go back home and do and work on online. And then they're going to see them again in a couple of days and be able to follow through. Mm-hmm. We really wanted that opportunity for accountability and consistency. So it was deliberate.
Right. I think that they were thinking about health-wise, that it would be easier to contain pods of students. And so I think maybe they would like to maybe present some ideas to you. I think they'd be flexible to think about your ideas as well. But I think they'd maybe like to bring those ideas to you and just actually have you think about them, and they'd think about your response as well. So they also wanted to ask, and I think they have I think 4 or 5 sets of questions. But I think that another really important set of questions, and you talked about many of the things like making hand sanitizer and dividers, but another set of questions was PPE for teachers, personal protective equipment for teachers. You talked about face coverings and masks and things like that, but what other things do you have for teachers?
So before I talk about PPE, let me just say one more thing about the AB. One of the questions was, wouldn't it be an opportunity for us to have the buildings be cleaner if we did AA space? BB,
yeah, right. That's they mentioned that.
Right. And in talking to Paul Schulte, who's our facilities director, he said to us, we're going to clean those buildings every single day, and they will be clean. They'll have all night to air out and then be ready for the new group in the morning. So he said, whether we did AA or AB, it will be clean for the students. Then as far as PPE goes, I will say that Mr. Schulte has been amazing collaborating.
Isn't she talking about the hybrid model?
Yes.
She's not talking about the online first part of it.
Well, I'm talking about the
hybrid model.
Yes, Mr. Nemelka, I'm talking about the hybrid right now. Those were what the questions were from.
They are, Mike. I'm sorry, we've jumped in that. That's what my constituents were asking, that specific question, because they are hoping to get there. They know we're starting remote and they are advocating for that, but they still are looking toward that model. So
right. So in finishing what I was going to say, when we are face to face, Mr. Schulte has been very good about collaborating with us, and as principals have brought questions and concerns to us, we've taken them back to him and he's immediately acted on them. Let me give you a couple of examples. We will have sanitizing stations on the playgrounds now, and that is from feedback from our stakeholders. We also talked to him about the concern that teachers had about face shields. Many teachers would prefer face shields. Turned right around, and now he has said, absolutely, we will provide those face shields for teachers, in addition to cloth masks, if that's what they choose. And then we talked to him about the concern about bringing groups of children around you at a table. That's how we teach, right? We get down right with them and teach. and said, is there something we could do about that? And that's when he came back with plexiglass. We've had suggested it, and he found plexiglass study corrals that are clear for us so you can see through. If a teacher's concerned, they'll be able to have those and be able to work with those. So it'll be many options for us. And even just yesterday, he called me and said, please make sure our principals know that if there's a need, if they come up with a need for PPE, they need to call me and we can talk about it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You bet.
The Wasatch community has an old building. They do like their building in many ways, but they do have an old building, and they're particularly worried about the HVAC system. And so I'm wondering if anyone there can talk about the Wasatch HVAC system or HVAC systems in general, I think, for some of our older buildings. So that's a big concern of theirs. So what are we doing to think about some of our older buildings in the HVAC systems?
So
Mr. Schulte was checking all of the systems. I don't have data for you on that or information. I don't know if anybody else does, but I do not.
Kennedy, Paul has reconfigured all of the HVAC systems, to circulate fresh air, not recirculate inside air. And he has created a rotation plan for changing the filters on a much more frequent basis. But if you would like, we can obviously relay this discussion to him and then have him respond directly to you in regard to any other details.
Okay, and if you could link again, Deb, that'd be great. And then finally, to follow up with Tiffany, with Dr. Hall, I'd really appreciate it. One thing that a couple of the Washington parents have talked to me about, and was one thing that I was really interested in too, is that what I've heard is that the coaches have really been teaming with a lot of teachers to work for our remote model and really develop some innovative plans for remote. And can you talk a little bit about how our coaches have been working together with our teachers to develop things for remote learning?
Absolutely, thank you. We have an absolutely amazing team in teaching and learning, and we have an amazing group of academic coaches. And these coaches are teachers who are also specialists in their content area and in the instructional strategies to work in that content area. So we have them in science, literacy, ELD, English language arts and ELD, encompassing literacy, and mathematics. And they have done a couple of things under the direction of the supervisors in teaching and learning, who are spectacular, to help prepare for instruction to happen. And as you said, Dr. Kennedy, many of these teachers have been working all summer. I want to recognize that many teachers have worked all summer, but not all teachers, and that is fair, because just as you said, we have to think about our people. Many people are taking a vacation and a mental and emotional break right now. So I want to just say that many people have been working, and some people are just preparing and filling their emotional reservoir to be ready to start at the beginning of the year. Some of the things that they have been doing with academic coaches, with teacher specialists, is we have looked at all of the content standards, and we've identified priority learning or priority standards, because we know that teaching online is harder and takes more time to do one thing than it does when we're live. So what we want to make sure that we do is make sure that we capture the important learning that goes from grade to grade, so that we are able to make sure that as students move from 3rd grade to 4th grade, they're prepared to do 4th grade work. So that was one of the first things that happened, is that looking at the curriculum and really saying, what are the big rocks? What are the most important things to distill down and make sure that we have and we're ready and able to cover? Then, how do we prepare this? And this was a very interesting conversation because every district is doing this in a different way. But one of the fonts of resource that we have in this district is an incredibly talented and professional teaching cadre. Our educators are amazing, and so we really did not feel like the appropriate response to this was pushing out canned lessons. We didn't want to write curriculum and say, this is, on Tuesday everybody teaches this, and on Friday everybody teaches this. So in looking at that prioritized content, what we've been doing with teacher teams is helping them see how we can take the assessment data that we have, and Dr. Amy in our assessment and evaluation department has, data mined the information that we already have about students, and then we've prepared an assessment plan that is efficient and effective to figure out where we have unfinished learning coming into the year. And then teachers will be able to take that information, that immediate information from last year or the beginning of this year, and choose from different pieces of a phonics routine or our core program and be able to tailor that instruction to meet those students' needs. So that has been a lot of the planning. It's been, laying out what do we think that they need, what we know we don't have time to do. And I appreciate the conversation earlier about our vulnerable populations, is we don't have time to say, let's go back and reteach everything that was, in fourth quarter. That's not necessary. It's not the right thing to do. What we need to do is determine where students are and then be able to move the instruction forward from that point. And so it's preparing for that kind of agile and nimble work that we've been working on this summer. Thank you.
You're muted, Melissa.
So saying thank you to Tiffany for that response and to Catherine for her questions. I do appreciate the individual focus of your comments, Tiffany. I appreciate that on students' individual needs. Superintendent, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, I did not.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks for letting me know my mic was muted. Now I'd like to, if you're finished with your questions, Catherine, thanks for your thoughtful questions. I'd like to move to our board vice president, Nate Salazar, for comments. Thanks, Nate.
He muted too.
Nate, we can't hear you.
Is that better? Okay. Sorry about that technical difficulty there. Mostly I just wanted to extend a huge thanks to everybody that's watching us online, and certainly to everybody that's, put this plan together. Our teachers, our administrators, our cabinet level administrators as well. And then of course, everybody who's a staff person in our district, regardless of the role and the responsibility that you have. I certainly share the sentiment of Superintendent Madden and President Ford, and certainly my board colleague, Michelle Tuitupo. I have heard from all walks of life, all parts of this city, relative to our plan and relative to our options and the significance of parent choice, as well as the significance of being safe during these times in a global pandemic. You've challenged me, you've supported me, and regardless of the decision tonight, to echo what Michelle mentioned, that please continue to reach out and reach out often, and please continue to challenge us to think more creatively and outside of the box. Regardless of the decision as well, I urge this community to rally around our children, our kids, our students, certainly to rally around our teachers. They are champions in my book, and they have done everything that they can to make sure that they're ready for this school year. Of course, rally around this district. We know what works to keep our community safe. There are direct correlations with the importance and significance of wearing a mask in this county. The advocacy of County Mayor Jenny Wilson asking the governor for a mask mandate. And thank you, Governor, for allowing Salt Lake County to have that mandate. And I want to encourage our community to keep that in mind as we move closer and closer to the school year. It is my expectation, it is my desire that when it is safe, that we get back to the classroom. I do appreciate this plan that all of these folks who are joining us tonight have put together. I love that it's rooted in science. I love that it's rooted in the recommendations from the CDC, and that there are specific markers relative to how we define safe in our district and in our community, ultimately for our kids and our personnel. So please continue to reach out, parents. We need to hear from you. We can't do this alone. But I do urge this community to rally around us as we move forward. With that, I do have, I had a couple questions, but they've been covered by some of my colleagues on the board as well. One question I have probably a two-part question for Dr. Buendia and Dr. Hall. I'll start with Dr. Hall relative to remote assessments. One of the questions and feedback I hear a lot from the community on either side of the discussion is relative to how do we measure success and how do we know that our offerings of online or hybrid or back in the classroom are effective. And I know in the plan there's a section about remote assessments, and I would love some more context about that and ideally what kind of outcomes you're hoping to measure and see relative to that.
Thank you. That is a great question, and it's one that I know all of our parents are worried about, because the real question is, what is this doing for our students long term? So that's a really thoughtful question. Thank you. And a couple of things. So we are working, our State Department of Education, the Utah State Board of Education, is working to make sure that we are going to have access to our state assessments. And we're looking at different ways of making sure that we're able to give those. We're not able to give them in the spring, but we will use those same assessments to make sure that we know where students are and what their growth looks like this year. So that's one of the things that we think is very important. And as part of our assessment plan is making sure, for instance, in literacy, we have our kindergarten entry and exit profile, which is for our kindergartners to see where they come in and where they leave. So we'll have that one for kindergartners. We have Acadience, which is a reading test. And then, so that we understand where students' reading level is. That is the test that we use. I shouldn't call it a test. I'm sorry. I hear Peggy Patterson rolling her eyes at me right now. Our assessment that we use to make sure that we're meeting our board goal for our 3% literacy. So we'll have that in place, as we'll have our RI reading. I just lost the I, Peggy. I'm so sorry. Our RI test, which is the test that we use, the assessment that we use for 412 to make sure that we're meeting our board literacy goal of 3%. So those are standard, reliable assessments, and we'll be giving them in appropriate ways. In math, Holly McIntosh, our math supervisor, has worked with our math program, EQUIP, and we are going to be piloting this year some wonderful new online resources that they have that will give us very targeted assessment information about where students are in math. And so we'll be able to use those all year as we track in grades 4 through 8. We're going to try something kind of innovative. I think we're the only district at this point that's looking at that, but we are looking at giving our half blueprint for the RISE to the prior year. So that will help us know exactly where our students are coming in. So a student in 4th grade would take the 3rd grade, a student in 5th grade would take the 4th grade, so that we have an idea if there are gaps in that learning, and we'll be able to close those by the time they're taking their on grade level RISE test at the end of the year, or Aspire test in secondary schools. So we are going to be doing a lot of valid and reliable formative assessment throughout the year, and then we are going to be back with making sure that we are giving in conjunction and appropriately with our State Office of Education, State Board of Education, those assessments that help us see where we are relative to other students and districts in the state.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Hall, for the extra context there. And I look forward to seeing how this plays out as we move into the school year. My second question, I believe it would be for Dr. Buendia, but maybe Larry, Superintendent Madden can help direct it if it's not. But relative to that outreach piece, I know we covered it a little bit, but I know that there is some significant concern about how we reach students who aren't logging in. And I know the plan has some outlines for personnel kind of altering their day-to-day to make sure that they're conducting outreach alongside teachers and administrators and paraprofessionals. And I'm wondering if we could just elaborate on that a little bit more as well.
Dr. Hall, I don't know if you want to speak to that, or I can, either way.
Sure, I'll let you start, or if you'd like me to start.
I'll start. We have, what we have to do is, right, we're gonna reach out to everybody, and some people are gonna be a little harder to get a hold of than others. And what it takes is manpower and getting after the job. And so we've used a lot of our parapros. I think this was mentioned earlier, but so helpful in connecting with families. And I know from my personal experience from last year that I had some parapros that would go go to houses. And sometimes that's what it takes. If that's what it takes, that's what we're going to do. Go to houses and spend whatever time it needs to get that family set up on technology was the instance I was thinking of from last year. And this young parapro that we had that would stay with the family and help them navigate their call to Comcast and make sure that in the end, when they left, they didn't just have internet, they knew how to use it. They knew how to get the student online, how to look at their classes and all those pieces. So eventually it gets down to kind of all hands on deck, need to start reaching out to those kids, and we'll do everything we have to do. I don't know if you want to add anything, Dr. Hall.
No, thank you. That was very good. But I'd like to thank Ms. Pittum for reminding me that the I in RI is reading inventory. So reading inventory. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hall and Superintendent Madden. And my last question, one that, I just have to say that I support this plan. I believe it's quite brilliant. I believe it's the strongest plan that I've had a chance to look at here in the state. I guess my question is relative to the significance of focusing on measurements and data about how we move into the classroom at some point when it's safe. Say that we are in a situation where we can be in the classroom. How do we identify when we might have to move back into remote if we're seeing spikes of a significant rate in our community of positive test infection?
So, Board Member Salazar, one of the things that we are working on and the State Health Department is working on is a matrix for just those kind of events, and they will be publishing that fairly soon. And so we will obviously share that with all of you as soon as we get that. But they are working on coming up with some designs around if this, then that, if that, then this, and that kind of thing.
Thank you so much for that answer, Moselle and President Ford. That concludes my questions. And again, just a huge thanks to everybody, to our board, and to my leadership colleague, President Ford, for all that we've had a chance to do together. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Nate. I appreciate that. And always your thoughtful questions. I know the governor in his press conference this afternoon presented a manual, which I had a chance to skim through. It's long enough that I haven't had a chance to digest it, but I'm sure everybody on here is looking at it and aware of it. So let's make sure we take opportunities to look through that. And thanks, Moselle, for your work on this as well. I'd like to move to our honorable board member from Precinct 5, Sam Hansen.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, President Ford. Can never quite get my head around calling you President Ford, but you are honorable as well. I'll just say what everyone said, which is a huge thank you to all of these executive directors, the superintendent, my colleagues, principals, teachers, nutrition workers, secretaries, custodians, everybody who's contributed to these plans. It's really a monumental effort from our whole community. And I include parents and others that have reached out to me, even those that disagree. I think, it's an opportunity to look at your ideas and make them stronger. So I will keep listening, and I know that everyone here feels that way too. But I'm really glad Moselle said that there are opportunities in this, and that we will learn from this and come out of it better and stronger, because I really think that's true. And I know that we're asking a lot by asking people to imagine that online and remote learning is going to look different in the spring, but I really believe it when I tell people that. So I'm excited for us to begin to share that. And also, I think today's been a great opportunity to learn a little bit more about how we're going to continue to build in face-to-face interaction. And hopefully you will walk away understanding that schools will continue to be the centers of all of our communities. So I feel, like I said, just a tremendous amount of gratitude. It sounds like we're just beginning to wrap our heads around what Nate alluded to a little bit in his last question, and in terms of what happens if we have cases when we do come back. So I'm going to suggest that we maybe talk about that more later when we've all had a chance to digest some of that information that came out today. And I know that there are a lot of pressing HR questions that we want to get to, but we sort of have to get through the decision today. So we just beg your patience, teachers and other employees who are waiting to hear the answers to those questions. I do have a couple questions. I love Michelle's question about who are these people, the most vulnerable people, because that is the crux of this, right? I read a great article by a social worker who said the hard thing about this moment is that we've got to protect our most vulnerable, and we've also got to educate our most vulnerable. So I think you have absolutely the right question, Michelle, and I will continue to look at that question. I had a question that I was going to direct to Paul Schulte if he was here about HVAC filters, and I know a lot of my constituents have sent me questions about HEPA filters, and I've been trying to read up about the difference between aerosol droplets and droplets that are droplet size and droplets that are aerosol size that sit in the air. So I hope we can have a conversation about that at some point. But I just, again, mostly want to say thank you. And I'm actually very optimistic about what we'll learn from this year and how we'll grow as a district.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate your thoughtfulness always. Now I'm representing Precinct 6, so I'll go ahead and make a few remarks. I have I'm surprised to hear myself say that, actually, because it's been a difficult time for me, as I know it has been for all of you. But the conversation, even though there's lots of argument, gives me a lot of hope, because what I hear are people talking about students and what their needs are and how to meet them on an individual level and how to reach to them and bring them to where they need to be. And that's important. That's why I engaged in this work. I would like to propose, actually, that we use our board meeting that's scheduled for August 11th to do a question and answer format for our parents who have questions about this. And to me, it seems like we're talking about lots of different things all in one thing when we talk about the plan, right? And we're talking about the restarting and getting back into classrooms. We're talking about starting remotely and keeping kids safe. We're talking about getting kids, how we're going to educate them, no matter what that format is, and focus on individual students. Those conversations need to continue. And I am inspired by the people here who are having those conversations and doing that work. I don't have any interest in sending kids back to classrooms before it's safe, but I do have strong interest in getting kids back into classrooms as soon as it is safe. I'm convinced by the conversations we've had and the things I've read that is our best opportunity for reaching students. That's what our teachers are trained to do. It's not lost on me, the amount of work that teachers are doing and what we're asking them to do. It's overwhelming, and they're working hard, and we want to keep them safe, and we want to keep our students safe. But getting them back into the classroom when it is safe as quickly as we can is important. I have here with me a plan that was presented by some constituents of mine. I think that I also share some of them with Christy. It's thoughtful. I'd like to make a suggestion that superintendent, that you look through it and see how some of those suggestions can be added to the plan as we move forward and into classrooms. I also would like to have the petition that they've sent, I think, to every board member and probably to you as well, superintendent, that represents over 2,000 signatures, many of them students that I know who are anxious to get back into classrooms. And I'd like to have that as the previous petition that my board vice president, our board vice president submitted last week. I'd like to have this one attached as well, so those voices can be represented. What I want is engagement in this process. What I like about this plan, the brilliance that I see in it, is the fluidity and flexibility to reach to individual families and students. Let's keep that as our focus. I would like to make sure, as we start remotely, that we are reaching students. I think that by our September meeting, we ought to know how we've been able to connect with everybody. I want to hear that because that matters to me. I want to hear how people are feeling about it. Our students, our families, and our teachers. How are they feeling about how we're moving forward? I really am proud of a plan that is safe and sustainable, but directed at getting kids where they are the most effectively taught in a way that protects teachers, protects students, and protects their families. It is important to me that the people I am elected to represent feel like their voices are being heard. And many of them feel like we can move fairly quickly to a hybrid plan and beyond. I hope that's the case. I appreciated the superintendent's presentation because it starts with a goal of keeping people safe and getting back into the classroom as quickly as possible. And it ends with a call to do our part. Let's do everything we can and rally around our students. That's what I've seen here tonight. That's what I've seen in the work and presentation from all of these good, really highly skilled and trained individuals that have presented the plan for getting kids back into class. And really appreciated what Vice President Salazar was talking about. This is something we can do for our children. When a community rallies around students, good things happen. I'm in a situation now where I'm watching a community, my community, rally around one of our children who's primary children's fighting for his life. And the positivity that comes from working together to make a solution that's best for students is amazing. And the positivity that comes from focusing on individual students who's struggling right now matters. And when I chose to move to Salt Lake 20 years ago, I didn't think I'd like it here. 20 years later, I love it. This is my home. This city is my city. And I think that this is an opportunity for us to really show what Salt Lake's about. We really are one city. We really have one group of students that we're trying to educate. At the end of the day, our kids will say, I graduated from Salt Lake City School District schools. And I want that to mean something. So I really do appreciate the work of all the board and all of the people who are on this call. The few things I would like to suggest is I would really like to see us focusing on ways to bring our youngest students back into buildings quickly. Perhaps even more quickly than the metrics that you've put out with the 5% and the 10 cases per 100,000. Kindergartners, first graders, second graders, for example. I would like to find ways to get them engaged in in-person instruction. Again, safely, but I would like to see them there as quickly as possible. Perhaps other groups that I might define as vulnerable in the education system might be our 9th graders. I would love to see them as they're transitioning to high school have opportunities to navigate that a little bit better. I'd also really love to see us focus on the hybrid model, especially at the high school level, and make sure that we are really engaging with how that hybrid model will work. I would love to see the same kind of video presentation that was done for the middle school, for high schools, so that it can be understood. And I think feedback should be received from those schools, but also from the parents of those students, that can get them, getting them the high quality education they need and the preparation for college they need. And then I'm really concerned about the students who will be seniors in high school this year, who are credit deficient. I know I've spoken with Dr. Hall about this. I don't want the fact that they were born in 2002 or 2003 be a determining factor in whether or not they graduate from high school, because I know that will factor negatively for the rest of their life if they don't graduate. And so I really need that group to be a focus in terms of let's capture every single student, so that they have what they need to graduate. And then not sure that those are questions as much as they are things I would really hope that we'll be focusing on. And then I'll just circle back to the board and put out there that I really would like to consider using our August 11th meeting as an engagement time with our community for questions and answers. So all of you wonderful executive directors and our school leadership and performance group to be prepared to be thinking about that. It seems clear to me from the conversations we've had tonight that we ought to bring Paul Schulte into that conversation. I know that he's doing very good things to prepare our buildings to be ready for students. And remember, I'm hoping we get there as soon as possible. And then I think we probably ought to bring in Sam Quantz to talk about the digital inclusion and what he's doing for support, because I know that in my house, the internet is not quite sufficient to accommodate both me, my husband, and my son on at the same time. So if I have a problem, there are probably others that do as well. So let's do all we can to make sure we're meeting that need. And Sam can, I know he's doing a lot of work on that. And then let's also bring, I would suggest James Yapias in to talk about what the foundation is doing and share those opportunities with our community as a question and answer session. So I'd like to now give board member Sweat an opportunity to speak.
Thanks, Melissa. So going last is always a pro and a con, right? Because the pro is that so many of you have asked a lot of the questions that I have, but I still have such a pile of questions. But first and foremost, I just want to echo what Melissa and Michelle and Nate have been talking about. And Michelle, if I could have just had you write a statement for me, that was very eloquent, because it really spoke to how I'm feeling. That, you know, I've had multiple emails, and as I've tracked them, I have heard from many parents and many teachers from all of the precincts across our district, which was very satisfying to me, that they felt that as if they could reach out and they could send me emails and talk to me about the concerns and issues that they felt were facing us. I appreciate Melissa asking to have that petition attached to our minutes, because I think it is important. There was a thoughtful letter that was sent with it, and so many, as Michelle said, so many people that felt that they didn't have a voice. That was the way that they were signifying that they really have some significant and deep thoughts about how we get from remote learning quickly back into an in-person learning. And I can tell you that the parents that I've been talking to, the teachers I've been talking to, just as Sam said, you know, they have been very, they have been, I don't know if I want to say life-changing, but to a certain extent they have been, because those conversations have really meant something to me. So please know that I will continue to answer emails, just as Catherine talked about. I want to make sure that I reach out to all of you. Before I jump into my questions, I have just a few things that I just want a little bit deeper answer on. I just want to thank everybody, as everyone else has. I don't think that we can do that enough, for the great work that's been going on, and for the incredible work that went into the document that we received from Dr. Bundia and from Christina Kendall. It was done very quickly, and there's a lot of meat in it, and I appreciated the work that went into it. It really helped me answer some questions for my constituents, but also for myself. So thank you again for that. Superintendent, as I look at this PowerPoint that you have put out there for us, I can see that, looking at those guidelines, the CDC guidelines, the orange guidelines, all of that, has come into play into the metrics. And what I would like to ask is that not only are we looking at the positivity rate, but I think it would be important for us to look at that community spread transmission rate. I think that that has to be a part of the conversation. I would like to look at our feeder patterns, and also look at our zip codes, because our zip codes vary. And, we have 10 zip codes that all of our schools sit in. And if you look at zip code 84103, which has 4 schools in it, that positivity rate is at 3.9. But then you can jump over to 84116, which has 7 of our schools in it, and that positivity rate is 17.3. And so I think that, we need to always be looking, at every metric that we can. And I would even suggest, let's look at the hospital rates, let's look at, what's happening in our city, and I know there's a lot of information about the county, but I would really like us to focus in on that city, piece. So if we could do that, I would really appreciate that. So I have some questions for Dr. Hall. And so Tiffany, I want you to know that there has been, a lot of conversation around the schedules. And on our chatter, I had to stop looking at it because I really wanted to pay attention to what all of our board members are saying. But there really would, our parents would really like to see a schedule for our high school students, the same way that there was put one up for the middle schools in the video that Superintendent Adams showed, which, by the way, I really appreciated being a part of that little think tank for an hour. So Tiffany, could we possibly look at putting up on the website some mock high school schedules, starting with the online, and answering this question: going online at the high school level, would not a true A-B schedule be what our students are experiencing?
Board Member Sweat, I am going to actually ask Mr. Brian Conley to take this.
Oh, is Brian on with us?
Yes,
Okay,
Brian is on,
Brian is there. Perfect.
All of this amazing schedule work was let out by school leadership and performance. And
great. I didn't know Brian was on.
Yes,
okay,
so
go for it, Brian.
I will defer. Thank you.
I think Brian's mic is not on.
Brian, we can't hear you. No, you're muted now. I don't think your microphone is working.
Maybe, has he had earplugs in? He might need to.
We can't hear you, Brian. So, Christy, I will echo that I've heard that same concern about what that schedule might look like, and a presentation would be really important. I'm sure Brian has a brilliant answer for us, but which you can't hear right now.
We
But
can't hear Brian
let's talk about that and have that be a continuing part of our conversation.
Okay, so then
and
let
get
me-
that kind of presentation like you did. Thanks for participating in it, but let's get that presentation out and then we can ask questions and answer
I think
questions
that
about
would
it.
be good. So maybe what I could do is just, since Brian can't talk back with us, is to ask for these things to be a part of it, that we see a true high school schedule that would be for the online with the traditional A-B days, then moving into the hybrid, that we look at adding a second day, into that schedule, knowing that we would need to engage our school community councils and our administration. I would hope that we would have some flexibility as we move into that hybrid that could address some of the issues that parents are talking about, where we're blocking, all of our A's in one quarter and then all of our B's in another quarter. I think that has been a huge conversation with my parents and with teachers too. So if that could be a part of a presentation, maybe on the 4th, if we're looking towards the 4th, then I think that would be really helpful. The other piece that Dr. Hall, maybe you could answer, goes back to what Nate was talking about with student engagement. And I think that the deeper that you can dig into that to really talk about that, because I've been hearing from 20% to 50%, as high as 50%, that students didn't log on, that really, what are those steps? And I appreciated you walking through some of those assessment, those, if you want to call assessments or processes, in order for us to reach out to those students. And I'm wondering if you could just talk a little bit more about the student engagement piece in regards to, the logging on and the growth, because you touched on it a little bit, but could you expand on it a little bit more?
Sure, I'd love to. So one of the things that we know happened in the spring, and it was a difficult part to this, and our assessment and evaluation department has really gone deep into trying to figure out what that actually looked like, is that because we had a non-uniform platform, can I say that, a non-uniform? We had teachers who were reaching out to students in so many different ways.
Right.
So we had Canvas, which was very prevalent in secondary, but not so much in elementary. And in elementary, we had a wide range of things. We had schools using Class Dojo. We had schools using websites. There is a teacher at Beacon Heights that did, or Indian Hills, that did this beautiful website. They were using email. They were using a variety of ways to reach out and connect with students. The problem was, or the challenge to that, is that then it was harder to pull that data in and count it. So I would maybe look at that in Canvas, and I could only see so many students, but the teacher might know that she or he had reached out and gotten in contact with students over the phone or a text or an email in a way that wasn't recorded. And so that really is one of the reasons that we have moved out and said we all need to be in Canvas, regardless of the resources and the different things that we're using. That way we can have a metric that will show us if kids are logging, even if they're coming in to work on Lexia or ST Math, going through Canvas will show us every time they've logged in, and we'll be able to see and count that better. So the analytics of that is one of the widest things. We really do not feel that our numbers of disconnected students were that high. We think that there were a variety of ways that teachers were reaching out. I know a couple of schools sent postcards, and many teachers went to students' homes. So students were more connected than we were able to assess. And I think that was a real wake-up call for us in terms of thinking about a system, a pre-K-12 system. Something I haven't shouted out in this is our early childhood program, which is also ramped up and ready to go remote and to use Canvas and to do all of these things so that we can really be sure that we are not losing students in the transition. And then after that is everything that the superintendent said. In having one platform, then we are able to say at a teacher level or a school level, lowest common denominator, what students are not coming into my class. At a school level, which classrooms do I need, do I have issues that I need to make sure that I'm reaching out and bringing those students in? Do we need to deploy additional help so that we can reach all of the students in this classroom? And then we'll have much better data to report to you at a district level, because we'll be able to capture that. That was really a scattered data collection. And at the end, and I would like to thank all of the teachers and principals at the end of the year when we really realized that we were not capturing this. And so we deployed another system to see if we could to get some data about how we were reaching out to students in other ways. And the thing that I think Dr. Amy and I would just like to say about that is, so many administrators and teachers said, we are already doing this. We are counting this data. We have this data. We're watching our students. We know who's here. We know who's not. And all we could say is we just need it in one place so that we can look at it. And that's how come we're moving out with Canvas in this way.
Okay. Thank you so much. So that what you just said leads me to another question that would probably be in concert with you and Brian. And that is, for me, one of the things that parents have asked is that they really want to guarantee that their students are going to be seeing a live teacher per their schedule every single day. And so why can't attendance be taken in every single class, which would help provide that information to us, right?
Oh,
and so I think that, looking at, that question, for Brian is, what does that day look like for a student? Goes back to, are they going to be seeing their teacher, each one of their courses in a live situation, an attendance could be taken, so that would help in that metric of being able to find out what you were talking about earlier, the growth piece, but also knowing that kids are showing up for class.
And before I turn that over to Brian, Board Member Sweat, that is a great question. And often I jump to one thing and don't answer the question on the table, so I apologize. When we are in remote, we are expecting on that Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday schedule, the kids will be in front of the class with the teacher. And so we'll be able to take attendance that way. The reason I keep talking about Canvas as well is because if students log in to get to their Zoom classroom, as we saw in the video, again, logging in to get to their Zoom classroom also gives us the metric that they're in. So it's not only the teacher being able to take attendance that we see them on screen, but also anything that they're doing as they log in helps us see that they've been there. And now I'll turn it over to Mr. Conley. Thank you, Brian.
Can Brian talk now? Nope.
I think maybe I can I?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Just thank you for the question, Board Member Sweat, and we'll get more details out. I think a lot of what Dr. Hall had to say just now really sums it up. I was trying to get this working, so I didn't hear everything that that Melissa Ford, our board president, was saying. But I do think that there are good questions, and we can get into the weeds and specifics after I'm sure you guys make this final decision, and we can get some of that hammered out for you.
I think that would be really appreciated. I know that making the decision is important, but I also think that all of those outstanding questions, are the ones that hang in the air for parents. And so looking towards August 11th, for that parent forum, I would be totally in support of that, Melissa. And I appreciate that. So Superintendent, a couple of questions that have come up is, and I don't know who, because I think school support could easily, any of them talk about this, but there's a lot of concern around that Wednesday and what Wednesdays really look like for students. When we say digital, is there going to be access for our students, whether it's, in the K-12 spectrum, that now this Wednesday is going to be this digital day. And, even looking at the one that the Bryant 60 parents or teachers put together, it still is a little bit unclear of what that looks like for a student and the access they have to their teacher. So I don't know who wants to really talk about that Wednesday, but I would open that up to say, could someone give us a little bit more information about that Wednesday digital day?
Well, I mean, aside from that example, I guess there's still some questions about that. I think there's definitely availability though to work with kids, and I think that was the intention, of that group that you met with. But I think you're right. I think that's something that we need to spell out better. I don't know if anybody from school support wants to speak to that.
She's talking about hybrid again?
No, I'm just talking about the Wednesday digital day, which
That's
is
hybrid, right?
which is a part of the remote also, correct?
On that model, it existed throughout. Yeah.
Throughout.
Yeah. Becky?
I would just say some of the things, first and foremost, we're in the process of formalizing that schedule for our digital day to some degree. But again, the purpose of that day is for teachers to have an opportunity to do some collaborative work with one another, making sure that they really are maximizing their work online and in their classrooms, and opportunities for them to bring students in to do small groups. I believe that on Wednesdays, there'll be some work with ELP. And of course, teachers would be giving assignments for Wednesdays as well. So that's something that we could get more information on for you.
I think that would be really helpful. So going to what you just spoke to, Becky, and maybe Sandra Budia would want to chime in on this. The superintendent talked about at the beginning of those 2 weeks, the week before or starting the 25th to the 8th, that teachers would be able to have small group meetings with our students or with parents, or, so that there would be a meet and greet of some kind. And then Sandra talked a little bit about, continuing that throughout the year. And so I'm just wondering if Sandra, if you wanted to even speak to that a little bit more, that we would be able to give the flexibility to our teachers, to continue to have those small group meetings, even in remote. And that would be the Gen Ed population and the SPED population. Is that correct?
So I was speaking to instruction, kind of the way we're delivering instruction right now to our students with disability. Anything beyond that, I would have to defer to school leadership and performance because they've had those conversations with those school sites. So I certainly, I would encourage us to ensure opportunities to make that happen so that we have, that would be my personal opinion, that, to have opportunities to have in-person connections with teachers, students, and parents would be awesome. And so certainly, we can take a look at how we make that happen with our counselors, our family school and collaboration specialists, but it's going to have to be a really coordinated effort and supported by the faculty and administration on site.
Yep.
That makes sense to me. Becky, was there something that you wanted to add?
Add that specifically, that was one of the purposes of Wednesday, that we want to see teachers bringing small groups in and working with them. It wouldn't be all day long, but that's certainly that would be a day they could do that.
I'd just add also that I hope we can maintain that flexibility. And while we want to meet the needs of all of our students with IEPs and 504s, I would not say that we would not allow Gen Ed kids to come in. I think that flexibility is crucial.
Thank you for saying that, because I think that, as Melissa and I, when Melissa talked about, looking at those younger grades, that made me think, well, if there was that possibility, K-12 for us to to look at those instruction, pods in a way, or small groups, that I think that would be really good for, for our Gen Ed kids also. So lastly, I just want to say that I'm very concerned, not concerned in the sense that we wouldn't be able to accomplish it, but I would like to talk a little bit more. And Board Member Kennedy brought this up in our last meeting around our devices. If we decide that we're moving remote, which it sounds like that's what, the path that we're taking, then as we mandate that out, then we need to be able to, as a district, provide that one-to-one device, for every student, and also that bandwidth in whatever way possible. And so I would just suggest that as in our next meeting on the 4th, that we really, as a board, we talk about moving our capital money into our general fund in order for Mr. Quantz to, to utilize that money if he needs to, to provide the devices, and also look at, what other needs there's going to be. So I appreciate that was brought up. I appreciate that it was a part of your plan, but I would like us to let our parents know that that's not something, that we're going to be going out and fundraising for, that the district is definitely going to be providing that in whatever way possible.
Right. We'd love to. Yeah.
I just thank you so much for the opportunity to ask questions tonight, and know that there's more questions that will come, Melissa, in our next meeting. I'm trying to limit. I could ask a lot more, but I appreciate our time and am cognizant of trying to move our meeting, along as you've tried, as you have been really thoughtful to do. But the last thing that I wanted to say was that although this has been a difficult time for all of us, I've appreciated the leadership of this board, of Melissa and Nate, and appreciate that they have been thoughtful and have listened to each individual board member, and knowing that all of us are receiving lots of different, feedback from all different avenues of our district. And I think it's important that we continue as a district to have open communication, and cannot express that enough. That's why in that document that Dr. Bundia and Ms. Kendall and everyone worked on around how we're going to communicate with our constituents and with our parents was really resonated with me. And it was thoughtful. And I think that if there's other ways that we need to add in, then we need to look at them. But it's a starting point of making sure that everybody is a part of it. The other thing I would like to say is I just really want our schools to be engaged. I want those school community councils to feel as though they are part of the governing bodies of the schools, and that they have a way to meet together, talk about with the administration ideas and flexibility around the schools. I think the school schedule, I think that is going to be important. My precinct lives on the very south end of our district, and I would be lying if I didn't tell you that I'm very distressed about the possibility of many of my families leaving and going to Granite School District because of the different schedules that we are proposing. And so I'm worried, about that aspect. And I want us to talk about that as a board, if we see that flight in our schools, to be able to have conversations of how do we pull our families back in? What are the things that we need to be aware of, and make sure that they have a voice, so that hopefully in the end that they'll make the decision to stay with us. As Nate has said, let's rally around each other and help each other and support one another as much as we possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Christy. I echo your concerns and share them. And I hope you've heard from me tonight that I want our focus to be on individual students and their needs, and how to best help and support them to get the highest quality education that they all deserve. Now, we've all spoken, but we've saved the very best for last. The very best representative from all of us last week was our student board member, Dottie Uman. And I would like to give Dottie an opportunity to speak and share her thoughts and what she feels about where we're at tonight, and thank you, Dottie, for representing our students and for representing West High.
Thank you for having me. So specifically to address President Ford's comments on engaging elementary students in particular, these are just a few things I've come up with. I also want to thank the families who keep this city running and everyone in attendance today. None of this could have happened without you. So I conducted an independent informal digital survey of 300 West High students, over 200 of which were Rose Park residents who go to school at West High. So at the end of the short survey, I asked students what their family's greatest concerns were. The top two were economic stability and finding childcare. I also heard from high school students that the hybrid model solves neither of those issues because it neither allows for their parents to go to work, nor does it allow for them to find childcare. I've read the letter written by Rose Park residents. I read that letter, and the letter says that Rose Park residents are willing to give up economic stability in order to keep their children as safe as possible. No family should ever have to make the choice between economic stability and keeping their children as safe as they can. That being said, I have a few suggestions that I think could address both those issues. We have new evidence from a new study out of South Korea, the largest of its kind, which examined 65,000 students. And it concluded that children under 10 were roughly half as likely as adults to spread the virus to others. In contrast, children ages 10 and older transmitted the virus at similar rates as adults. The way to solve for both economic stability and childcare is to hopefully stagger school reopenings, with elementaries opening first. This will also help reduce the number of students in classrooms, since individual elementaries cater to fewer students than high schools, which often have thousands of students. Wolfram Alpha Mathematica researchers from the state of Pennsylvania found that using a hybrid model for elementaries can allow schools to avoid an outbreak for at least 10 times longer than if they were fully operational or online alone, meaning that schools could stay open safely for an entire semester. The key here is predictability. Families and children can't take any more uncertainty. Empirics show that greater predictability means greater emotional and physical health, as well as better economic well-being for their families. By using a phased and staggered approach to eventually reach our final goal, we can avoid the worst-case scenarios and keep our students learning rather than set back. We are reaching the phase where we cannot catch students up on the learning they're missing. Harvard studies have shown that low-income students have lost half of their progress since April, and that by the beginning of the year, Black and Hispanic students could have lost 10 months' worth of educational advancement. In less than 10 years, that achievement gap will be almost insurmountable if we don't act now. In addition, I also really appreciate that the reopening plan addressed mental health. Specifically, high school students are struggling with that a lot. And I know that you guys are offering in-person mental health counseling in all buildings. I also ask that in all buildings we have emergency food supplies and other emergency supplies available. So if students need one-on-one counseling, they can also pick up a bag of food or necessities for their families on their way back home. The one thing we're losing here is time. And I also want to say that I hope that the school board works in tandem with the Salt Lake City government. Salt Lake City needs to back up teachers and disadvantaged families. That being said, high-risk students and high-risk teachers should not attend in-person schooling and should have the option to teach virtually. Teachers should receive access to PPE and hazard pay if needed. I also think that if the county or city could issue citations for those without a mask, that will be another step in the right direction so that we can get our elementary students in the classroom as quickly as possible. So that's just a little bit about what I had to say. By allowing elementary students in the class as quickly as possible, high school students wouldn't need to provide childcare for their younger siblings. They would also be able to focus on their own learning, and their parents hopefully could be able to maintain their own jobs and stability. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for your thoughtful comments, Dottie. Yours and my brains were on the same wavelength with that one. So thank you for that. I do hope and really would highly suggest we look at getting our kindergarten, at least our kindergarten through second grade students into classrooms quicker. That would be my hope. Thank you again, Dottie. Thank you all to board members for your comments and questions. Thank you to those who are here to answer. I think we've made a lot of progress tonight. We've shared a lot of information, and then I will just reiterate what Board Member Sweat said. We probably generated more questions as well. So I hope that we will use our board meeting next week and then the week after to continue working on this fluid framework for how we start. And I really appreciate all the work that everyone has done. I want to give our superintendent now some time to wrap up this discussion for now. Go ahead, Superintendent.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think one of the things that I'd like to say is I really appreciate everybody's input. It doesn't always have to be supportive. Hard questions help us think these things through and hopefully come up with better solutions. I think the other thing is we have to stay flexible. We're talking about making a decision now, and we know that every couple of weeks we learn so much more. And like Dottie alluded to, that there's a lot of information now about younger students, and we've got to be open to kind of revisiting whatever parts of this we learn more about. And so I think I know that the group of people here that are working on this, we're open to that. We need to keep talking, and we have the same goal, and that is to get back to school. That's where we can do our best work, and we want to get there just as quickly as we can. I just think that we're in this together, and I would ask again that this is a community solution, and everyone can help. And everyone can wear masks. Everyone can do the best to keep themselves socially distanced and isolate when they're sick. All of those things help us, and I do also believe that we'll come out stronger in the end. I think we'll be better. I think we'll learn some things that we keep for a long, long time to come. So I thank you all.
Thank you, Superintendent. There are a few things I neglected to do at the beginning. I want to thank our association reps who are here representing their associations. We have great employee representation in Dallin Miller for our Administrators Association, and Mike Carmen is here representing SLASA. I know that Cindy Mills is watching representing SLEOPA. We're always grateful to have Eric Adams and Ben Rowley and B. And I'm sorry, I can never remember your last name, B, but I do appreciate the work you do representing child nutrition. And I'm grateful for those that are here. There is something else I'd like to address. I'm told, but do not have access to watching the live stream of this board meeting. And I appreciate all those that have joined our meeting through the live stream. We're still working. B. Alonso, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm a little getting old, I guess. I'm slow, but thanks, B. Alonso. We appreciate you representing child nutrition. And I appreciate everybody who's engaging online in our live stream. This is, as you know, a difficult situation where we're streaming because we want to have access to our meeting to as many people as possible. People can comment who don't necessarily have engagement. And we appreciate the comments that we have from people who parents and employees of the district, but I'm told that that there is at least one person out there who is pretending to be one of our district employees, and that employee is not engaging. And that's I guess the risk that we take when we do that. So to the 15,000 of you approximately who are watching, I'm told, thank you. And then to those who are not sharing positive messages or who are representing somebody else falsely, please stop. That doesn't help our conversations. So I hate that I have to say that, but it is important to me that we have a conversation of respect and civility. We can certainly disagree with each other, but we can do that kindly and civilly. And I will echo and just want to shout from the rooftops the message of the superintendent that the hard questions, the difficult things actually help us make better decisions. If there was one solution that was the right solution that fit for everybody, then everybody would be doing that. I'm convinced that this is a collaborative process that we have to work together on, and we can do it. And we can get our students back in the classroom as quickly and safely and sustainably as possible. We can do that together. And then you've convinced me that the work we do in educating kids is going to maintain the high level we've come to expect from the Salt Lake City School District. I have no reason to believe otherwise. You good people are great. I think every teacher I've interacted with over my 20 years in the school district has worked so hard for our students, and I expect that will continue as we continually ask more of you. Thank you for caring for kids. So I would now like to ask if there's any board members that would like to make a motion, and so we can give direction to this group on how to move forward.
Melissa, what about welcoming Alan?
There you go. Thank you, Mr. Namelka. I really actually appreciate that. Thank you, Alan, for being here. And I know that Alan's done a lot of good work in making a lot of this possible, because how we fund this, how we provide masks for everybody, and how we set up plexiglass and all of the lots of great work that we're doing and supporting our teachers comes through that office, and how we budget and how we plan for it and make it sustainable is essential. Thank you, Alan. We're really pleased to have you as our business administrator, and thanks for being here. And if you want to say anything, feel free to. I hate to put you on the spot, but thank you. We've heard from most of the people on this meeting, and I think some of you have mentioned the good work of Christina Kindle as well. And she worked on the draft that's the restart plan that's attached to our board agenda that you've heard referred to. Expertise and writing ability is definitely valued. So thanks for being with us, Christina. All right.
I'll make the motion.
All right.
What am I motioning?
I don't know.
Oh, wait a minute. I make the motion that we. I don't know. You make the motion.
Let's have Nate do it.
President Ford, I'd like to make the motion that we move the restart plan and the exhibit to the action agenda for further discussion and board direction.
Second.
All right. Let's go ahead and vote. Moving to action, starting with you, Michelle.
Michelle Tuitepo, yes.
Mike Namelka, no.
Catherine Kennedy, yes.
Those are yes.
Samuel Hansen, yes.
Melissa Ford, yes.
Christy Sweat, yes.
All right. So now we have on our action agenda tonight is the restart plan as presented and discussed in detail for the last couple of hours. Can I take a motion on that?
President Ford, I would like to make a motion that we accept the restart plan as presented to us by Superintendent Madden, along with the expertise of the collaborative effort of the experts in our district that maintains the flexibility for us to make the best and safest decisions for our students.
I'll second.
So I have a motion by Vice President Salazar and second by Catherine Kennedy. Do I have any discussion to the motion? Christy.
I think that I don't know how we would add it in. I'm trying to think of how to add that in as an amendment to the motion, but just to emphasize that our ultimate goal is to return to in-person learning.
Can you accept that amendment?
Would you accept that?
Yeah, yes, I do accept that amendment. And Christy, I appreciate the motion, the amendment to the motion, and I'm glad that it's clearly stated in the document as well. So thank you for emphasizing.
Any other discussion to the motion? All right, let's go ahead and vote on the motion, beginning with you, Michelle.
Michelle Tuitpo, yes.
Mike Demelka, no.
Yes.
Samuel Hanson, yes.
Melissa Ford, yes.
Christy Sweat, yes.
All right, we have a motion approved 6-1 to proceed with our restart plan as presented and discussed tonight, with the flexibility that it includes and the direction that we are working as quickly as possible to get students safely back into classrooms. Christy?
Melissa, before we adjourn, could we just briefly talk about the 2 meetings that you've already suggested? And because I think there's always going to be this organic flow from this conversation, there's going to be multiple questions, that we still have and that we will have. And the requests that we've made, of our staff and of the superintendent, to move that into the August 4th meeting. And, and know that may be a lengthy meeting, but I think it would be good for us as board members to be able to either submit our questions to, if you want us to beforehand, to help prepare, since we have such a short time of turnover before our next meeting, because we don't want to catch any of our staff or the superintendent off guard. And then I would also support the August 11th meeting be a public forum for our parents and also our teachers and employees, that anybody who wants to come and talk and ask questions, and we can decide what that forum would look like. I think that I would love for us to move towards that on the 11th.
Okay, any other comments on that?
I think that's a great idea. I think it's going to take a lot of logistical.
Yes.
But just mindful of the fact that all these great people we have here tonight need to get started on school. So, I desperately want everyone to have their questions answered and everyone to have an opportunity to speak, and that's hard online. But let's just make sure we're not getting in the way of the work of starting this plan that we've voted on tonight. It's my only caution, and
that's thoughtful, Sam. That's thoughtful, as you always are. We need to be cautious about that. I also think it's important that we answer questions, and I've seen that in other boards as they've done question and answers. I think we can figure it out, and I will commit to doing a lot of the work for that. I really don't want to add more than is necessary to the good people who are already running at a full sprint, basically. Thank you for that.
I agree. It's very important to do that.
Yeah.
So maybe we can even do it in subcommittees or something.
Yeah, I knew you would, Sam. Thank you. All right. As we get ready to close, I'd just like to remind everybody that we will have a press conference about 30 minutes following this meeting, which will also be streamed on the YouTube channel. So join us for that if you'd like to. And then I would just like to say thank you to everybody who's here, and to all of you board members for representing your communities as well as really just beautifully well. Thank you. And then I will turn the time to our superintendent for anything you have to say in closing.
I just want to say thank you so much for your support and your questions. We will work as hard as we can. I just want to reiterate one last time that our goal is to get back into schools. We want to do it as quickly and as safely as we can do it. And we want to do it as a community. Thank you.
Thank you. And the meeting is adjourned.